Welcome, savvy travellers of the world, to this globe of wonder. And today you might wonder where we are. Well, we're in Yerevan, the capital of Armenia. And I'm going to try and take you on a tour of the metro. I say try because apparently it's illegal to take photographs or video for security reasons on Yerevan's metro. That's a measure I've not heard of in many cities, but there we go. Let's see what we can do, and also if we can discover anything else about transport in this great metropole, the centre of Armenian life and culture. We're also going to see the main railway station, what's left of Armenian railways, and also where children's dreams turned into professions with Soviet railways. I should mention that the statue was erected in 2018, and it's to the memory of Aram Manukyan, who was the first founder and I think president of Armenia in 1918. Yes. I'm going to travel on your metro. Yes. What's the metro like in Yerevan?
It's simply one line, small metro, but it's we like it.
What do you like about it?
It's made from special Armenian stones, and there were some stations with special Armenian symbolics, with the photos of Armenian heroes, etc., etc.
And is it true that there's also Armenian stone in the Moscow metro?
Yes, some of the stations were taken stone from here.
We are, 150 meters away from Republic Square, and we've arrived at the entrance to the metro. It's very, very Soviet looking, a lot of concrete, a little bit brutalist, but we shall see what it looks like inside. I am a bit concerned about how easy is this going to be to do, because people have warned me that folks will be on the lookout for me in terms of filming and photography, but we'll do our best. Yerevan was designed to be a model Soviet city and a great place to live. But funnily enough, the metro, which is an essential part of every large Soviet city, wasn't actually built until 1981, when the first 5 stations opened, including this one on Republic Square. But it is still a matter of great pride, because, as I say, all self-respecting Soviet metropoles had or have fantastic metros, whether we talk of Moscow, St. Petersburg, Kiev, Novosibirsk, and here, Yerevan. Not only that, but they continue to build it, and today it stretches 12 kilometers and was built during the 1990s and also the early 2000s, which is a source of enormous pride. And the reason for that is very simple. Armenia faced many challenges in the initial post-Soviet period. Martial law, lack of electricity, and huge economic challenges like every country and state emerging from the Soviet Union. Yet it managed to complete the task. Really not a great start. I'm back outside. It's taken me about 15 minutes so far. They won't take my money for the tickets because my banknote is too large, around about £20, and a ticket costs 30 pence, even though I'm willing to buy several, and they don't accept debit or credit cards, so it's cash or nothing. It's not easy getting on this metro. I found a little convenience store, so hopefully I can buy something here and then be on my way. Oh, there's some nice Armenian brandy at any rate, but I'm not buying that now. But it gives me an idea for another film at some stage. Okay, I think this is the answer. I'm going to buy an iced coffee. Most of the metro stations here are not very deep, which is very different to Moscow or St. Petersburg, but they move at a fair pace, which is just like in Russia. That is the escalators. I'm not moving very fast. Goodness me, well, at the main station it was impossible to film anything, but this one seems to be a little bit more lax, and you can see the typical Soviet design. There's some Soviet art piece at the end. Got to be honest, not sure what it represents, but it's quite attractive. And spacious stations, which also all double up as bomb shelters, or that was the objective. Grander and smarter than what we're used to in the London Underground. Perhaps I'm being a bit unfair. The new Elizabeth line is amazing. Gosh, you can definitely hear water running here, perhaps a river or a stream. Hopefully nothing too worrying. Perhaps I should move on. This is very interesting. Obviously the clock tells you what time it is, but also underneath 5 minutes, 1 second, 5 minutes, 4 seconds now since the last train. And this helps people generally work out how long until the next train, because they're quite regular services. I think this tells us where we're going in Armenian, written in English as well. That's very helpful. And finally in Russian. One thing that's great is that the signage is really easy to follow, irrespective of your nationality, because it's there in Armenian, English and Russian, and it's quite clear the direction of travel. This is Marshal Bagragyan station, right in the centre of the city, near the opera, near all the main streets. Now, the station lady didn't even want me to take a photograph of this chap, but she did allow me in the end after a little negotiation. But we're not allowed to film the station, unfortunately. But there's the Marshal in his glory, and also some background figures. It's relief, bas-relief, typical of metros across the Soviet Union, and hopefully of interest to you, because it's causing me a lot of aggro to get these images. I love the theming of this train. It's all Egyptian. What a good idea. This station represents friendship and all that. I can't show it to you because of the fearsome station ladies. There are little flags of every country of Europe, and I suspect the world, if I walk further down the platform. But this is rather nice here. A symbol of friendship, and I think also grapes for wine and brandy, which is always a symbol of hospitality here in Armenia. Now this station, on the other hand, really is deep. And I tell you, these escalators move at such a speed. Better hang on for dear life. But this is, I think, probably the deepest in Yerevan, and it's at Druzhba station. It's almost always interesting to get out at random metro stops anywhere in the world just to see what a normal part of town looks like. And here we've got an overpass, a lot of concrete buildings, but it just gives you a taste of how normal people live. Wow, what an experience so far. I think I've travelled between 5 underground stations, and I intend to try and look at a few more for you. What have I learnt so far? Well, first of all, it's excellent value for money at 150 dram. That is less, well, I don't know, it's around about 30 pence. That'll do. If I'm wrong, I'll put it on the screen later. And you can only buy tickets with cash, which is very frustrating. However, one thing that makes it easier is if you're going to use the underground a lot, you can buy a plastic card with no charge for 500 dram, so that's £1, and then put credits on it. Otherwise, just buy little tickets with a kind of QR code on them, and they're valid for up to 3 days. So it's an easy way of getting around the city without getting too lost as well. That's in its favour. The trains themselves, they're old Soviet style trains for the most part. They seem to have been modernised in different ways, in probably different places. There's orange trains, green trains, but they're all perfectly reasonable, highly practical. One thing that's quite evident is that station length is longer than the trains. Now, I don't think that's just because it's Saturday. I think it's because of relative demand. And the trains are either 2 or 3 carriages long. I would imagine that when the metro was designed, the trains were intended to be longer, and at least there's plenty of space for added capacity in the future if and when that is needed. My very limited Russian tells me that the square Druzhba, friendship, was basically named to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the founding of the USSR in 1922. So this was erected in 1982. It's been kept, and it reminds us that actually, although the Russian Revolution took place in 1917, the actual formation of the Soviet Union was a little bit later, December 1922. Yeah, it's definitely scarier on the way down if you have any sort of vertigo, but it's great fun. I have to tell you, I love it. Look at this magnificent statue and the wonderful Soviet-era railway station building. Actually, it was built in 1956. It's very typical of the architecture of that period. But the first railway line to and from the city was opened in 1902, and it was a line which ultimately went through the second city onto Tbilisi in Georgia. 6 years later, in 1908, a railway line was then built to Ulfa in Persia, modern Iran, and it just shows us how close we are actually to Iran today. In fact, you can take buses to Tehran very easily from this city of Yerevan. What's a little bit sad is that although the building was restored in 2010 to its full grandeur, the railway network of Armenia is very diminished. Yes, 3 times a week, I believe, there's still a train from here to Tbilisi, in the summer to Lake Sivan, and there is a service south as well, although it doesn't go very far because of the conflict with Azerbaijan. But this is a tiny network compared to the past, and as a result the bus services are far more important than the rail services. Another little oddity is that the train services are actually run by Russian Railways, the South Caucasian department. So it's not really Armenian Railways at all. It's actually operated and managed by the National Russian Railway Company. This is veritably a cathedral to the railway industry. What a beautiful hall. This machine says carbonated water, and used to find these all over the Soviet Union in underground and railway stations and public places where you could simply get a drink at a very cheap price. I imagine that back in the day, well, I can't stand that phrase, but back in the day there must well have been trains to Moscow as well. This way for the ticket desk for both international voyages and also local transport. I love this representation of 2 Soviet-era trains as well. Guess what? I've been told it's forbidden to film this train as well. It's going to the second city of Armenia, Gumri. Beautiful paintings on the metro. It's stunning. What an entrance. It's more like a museum. This big chunk of concrete, which almost looks like a cannon projecting from the earth, is actually the station of the youth. Well, that's what it was called when it was built, station for young people in their honour and in their glory as they were going to march forward and build the Soviet Union. There's one last thing I wanted to show you on this transport tour, and that is the old children's railway, but my goodness, it's a slog uphill, well, so far at any rate, but it should be down here somewhere by the river. We'll find it together. And here we are at the Children's Railway in Yerevan. It's a bit quiet now, unfortunately, in the winter, but back in the day, and it was founded in 1937, this was actually a hive of activity where children operated their own railway, and lots of tourists and families would come and enjoy themselves being looked after by the kids. Now, this was actually with the objective of training children to take up railway as a profession, and they'd learn all of the various invaluable skills and later on in life join the Soviet railways and be given a head start, really, I suppose. It's all a bit sad now, a bit forlorn, although I do believe that in the summer there are actually still train rides at weekends along the track. But let's have a look round. The original children's railway building was constructed in the 1940s. It was made of wood. So this is clearly a later structure, or I'm not quite sure when, but I'd hazard a guess that it's linked to the main railway station we saw earlier, because the structure is similar, the kind of Soviet tiered cake style. Even the central hall has its large chandelier and stained glass windows, absolutely in line with the main railway station. But the difference that I notice is, I mean, just look at that balcony in the middle of the shot now. It has a fairy tale quality. It's almost like a mini Neuschwanstein from Bavaria in Germany, a Disney-esque castle. And I suppose the idea of making this profession feel like a fairy tale was inevitably going to get children even more engaged and keen to discover about the railways and end up working there themselves. Oh my word, look, when we come out at the back of the railway station, we actually find a little locomotive and also some wagons. No idea whether they still work, but let's go and have a look. And look at these carriages. You can imagine the fun. Imagine there were very young conductors, ticket collectors, a whole load of fun. Tickets, please! Bilety, пожалуйста. What a pretty little path. It must be lovely in summer. Look, there's the points control just on the left, but unfortunately the train's not going to be going anywhere until these branches are cleared off the junction. The inner child is coming out in me. I'm just imagining that I'm a wagon like in Thomas the Tank Engine, and I'm about to couple with those carriages. Is couple the right word? Boo boo! All aboard! Inside the cabin. Does anybody at home know what this does? If you do, let us know in the comments, because I've truly no idea whatsoever. In Russian, Southern Caucasus Railways. Okay, here on this plaque you can see that the letters CCCP, or in Russian SSSR, and the hammer and sickle, and the fact that the train was built in 1937. Imagine what a wonderful dream of a place this would be if only there genuinely were more kids around. But even though it's a little disappointing that it's deserted, it's definitely worth a visit. And there are no barriers to stop you. You can either walk through a rather terrifying looking tunnel into the city centre, or walk up and down a hill as I did on the way here. Either way, if you're in Yerevan and you like different types of sites, things that make you think and appreciate the social history of a place, this is definitely worth seeing. Top recommendation. The rather long tunnel I have to go through to avoid the arduous walk up and downhill that I took on the way here, it doesn't look very inviting, but the alternative is worse. These lights on the ceiling are just like on many passageways and in the underground in Moscow. Thanks for keeping me company as I walk through the tunnel. I appreciate it. Anyhow, hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, you might like the two videos either side of my ears. One of them is my review of a trip on Viking lines from Estonia to Helsinki, and the other is my review of the all-you-can-fly pass with Wizz Air. Once again, thanks ever so much, and see you soon.